more insight into all this, let's bring in Anthony Chan, former chief economist at JPMorgan Chase. Always good to see you, Anthony. Thanks for taking time to chat.
Good to hear from you, Sean.
So how widespread is the concern that lawmakers are using inside information to make profitable trades?
I think it's pretty widespread. During the COVID epidemic, it was widely known that a lot of congressional officials knew that the economy was going to close down. And of course, we know that that meant that the economy would grow slower. Economic growth growing slower would mean the stock market would go down. And so they were able to trade ahead of that information. And that's true for many other events that happen. Congressional officials often are privy to information that private investors have no way of knowing, and therefore they have an advantage.
You know, Anthony, this is something that's really hit a nerve with people across the country, especially those who are going to have to absorb cost from the tariffs. And there are legions of people who believe the current system of checks and balances for lawmakers simply isn't good enough. People are tired of seeing congressional members come into office, retire years later, suddenly worth millions of dollars while making $200,000 a year. I'm not saying they're doing it illegally, but the optics are horrible.
They are. And in fact, a poll by the University of Maryland indicated that 86% of the American people would love to see these congressional officials be banned from trading stocks because they feel that they have an undue advantage over private investors.
Yeah, so walk us through, for those wondering, explain how quickly markets can really move, say, after a tariff decision. How would a lawmaker with advanced knowledge stand to make money?
Well, remember, a lawmaker may have information that could be hours or even a day before an increase or a reduction in tariff or postponement of tariff. And markets, when those announcements are made, move in nanoseconds. So if you have in advance information to any of that, even hours or even minutes before it's released to the public, you can make a lot of money.
So why do you think lawmakers simply bristle when asked about this? Because I think I saw Nancy Pelosi. I mean, this is something Democrats and Republicans have both been accused of for years now. Nancy Pelosi simply bristled, actually took an interviewer to task for even bringing up the question.
Well, simply because she has profited privately from stock purchases. But even Nancy Pelosi has now come out in favor of banning congressional officials. In fact, remember that at one point they called it the Pelosi Act, and later in negotiations they dropped that name, and she said if this is going to enhance credibility, she would support it. Now, you are correct, Sean. She was not necessarily in favor at the beginning, but she has come around. But so far, a lot of Republicans have not come around because it's become a partisan issue.
Interesting. And also, Nancy Pelosi pretty wealthy now as well. So what loopholes are out there that still allow members of Congress to indirectly benefit from insider knowledge? If you or I did it, the hammer would come down.
There are a lot of loopholes because, in fact, some congressional officials have been accused by the FBI of insider trading, and yet, upon further investigation, they've sort of been absolved. And so they've continued to earn all this money and have gotten away with it. And that's why now Josh Hawley, along with some Democrats, have put forth this legislation to put an end to this once and for all. But again, it's one of those things where it's still not clear whether it's going to be able to pass through Congress and get it enacted.
You know, what message would banning stock trading send about an effort to restore some trust in government?
Sean, I think it's a positive message because if such legislation were to pass, then it would tell the American people that we are serious about making sure that no one has an unfair advantage. Keep in mind that trading on insider information is illegal, but for some reason, that rule has been a little bit more flexible for people in Congress, and passing such legislation will say that no one is above the law and that everyone must abide by the law and not trade with inside information.
You know, I also have to ask you about U.S. President Donald Trump as well, coming out and saying he's going to be the crypto president and then have his meme coins come out. His family's value gone up hundreds of millions of dollars because of his very public stance on crypto. I'm not saying that he had that stance so he could rake in hundreds of millions of dollars, but that's the accusation out there.
That is the accusation out there. And in fact, privately, some Republicans have said that they are not necessarily in favor of it. They don't say it publicly, but a lot of the crypto top guys out there say that that's been a distraction for them because it really does cause some issues for them and delegitimizes the crypto industry to some extent when you hear that stuff. So hopefully some of that will be contained. But yes, it's a little bit of a distraction, and sometimes people sort of roll their eyes when they hear it.
Anthony, one final question. For an international audience and for people who don't follow the ins and outs of Capitol Hill, explain why Josh Hawley is so important to this, because this is someone who's really drawn the president's ire for his stance on this. And do you find it strange that that senator would be the one beating the drum, so to speak?
It is a little bit strange, but he has taken this as a personal crusade. And in fact, the president has called him to task and said that he's being disloyal by working with Democrats to get this done. But it is truly a personal crusade for him. He wants to make sure that no one in Congress takes advantage of insider trading. And even though he's Republican and many of his Republican counterparts are not supporting his efforts, he continues to push ahead. And the president is a little bit disappointed, but tolerating it.
Give me a one-word answer. Will this legislation pass?
I don't think so, Sean. I hope it does, but right now, I would say that the odds are not great.